Hey you guys! So today's video is going to be very interesting. I am doing a demo and a review using the Morphe Jaclyn Hill palette and the Morphe 350 palette. I felt inspired to do this because I have both of these now and I really wanted to get a feel for the products. I've never used Morphe shadows before. I did an entire anti-haul rant slash spiel about Morphe last year. I will link it right here if you have no idea what I'm talking about. And I kind of wanted to see if I use the products, would I still stand by that opinion? So stay tuned and watch the video to get an overall synopsis of my opinion of the line, at least as far as these two products are concerned and what I kind of gleaned from them. And as I said in my haul video that I did recently, I actually now have two Jaclyn Hill palettes because I'm impatient. I ordered one on Sunday, I went makeup shopping on Tuesday, I bought the one in person as well, and then the one that I ordered online came in to boot. So I decided to do a giveaway. So the spirit of this video is basically in line with me just trying things out and seeing if maybe I was wrong and being willing to admit if I was wrong. I think that here on YouTube it becomes this sort of thing where like you said something once and then you have to be like married to that statement forever. I personally don't subscribe to that. I've said things on this channel and had opinions about products and techniques over and over again that I just look back at and I'm like, what was I thinking? What was I talking about? I do not feel that way anymore. So I am very committed to being open and trying and happily admitting if I had the wrong impression of something or come to enjoy it later. So in the spirit of that, if you would like to enter the giveaway to get your very own Jaclyn Hill palette, I want you to comment below something new that you've tried recently. Even better if it's something you never thought you would try. Feel free to share with me what it was and what you learned from it, but that's all you have to do is down below is let me know something new you've tried. And if you want to enter on Instagram as well, I will have a picture on my Instagram with all the rules as well. All you have to do is share that picture on your own Instagram, tag a friend, and you're entered. You can enter on Instagram and YouTube, but only one entry per person. Check the down bar below to see all the rules written out and itemized so there's no confusion. And I will pick the winner in about 2 weeks. So I'll leave the date down below as well. Anyway, let's get into the video. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please thumbs up if you do enjoy it and make sure you subscribe if you have not. Find me on Snapchat and Instagram and let's get started. Alright guys, so I'm sitting here with both of my palettes. I have the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette and I have the Morphe 350 palette. As I said before, I'm not 2000% sure if this is the same infamous Morphe 350, the same infamous 350 palette that we saw all over Instagram and YouTube there for a hot minute. I have no idea. It looks pretty similar to me. Either way, the main objective here is to kind of get an idea of the difference between the standard 35 shade palettes. The main reason I'm doing this is because, as I said in my haul video, initially I decided that I would pick up this palette just to kind of use it and see if my opinion of Morphe as a whole could be kind of swayed a little bit. Initially, I kind of made a comment that there was nothing that drew me to Morphe. I did not understand the hype, and looking back on that, I kind of had this idea where maybe I will try out a few items that I have featured in anti-haul videos and see if once I try them, I feel any differently about what I said initially. My main concern is I'm going to waste a lot of money on stuff that my gut tells me I'm not going to like, but I'm here to do it for you guys. On telling some people on Snapchat that I picked this up, a lot of people told me that I shouldn't use this palette as the basis of comparison to develop an entire opinion on Morphe as a brand, at least as far as their eyeshadows are concerned. So that's kind of why we're doing it today. Ingredients for these two palettes are different. And one thing about this in general that I've noticed is the smell. I know it doesn't make any sense that I'm mentioning the smell of eyeshadows, but I bring this up because I talked about in my initial anti-haul day in my life many moons ago where I was just getting into freelance makeup artistry and I needed to stock my kit very cheaply, so I was using brands like Coastal Scents, and I will never forget the smell of those eyeshadows. It's just like a nostalgic thing in my memory that will always be there, and this particular palette smells just like those palettes, so that gives me the impression there's got to be some sort of similarity between those palettes. Now, the number one thing that's going to tell me if these things are similar to the Coastal Scents ones will be how my eyes react to them. I had to stop using Coastal Scents eyeshadows. On other people, they worked beautiful when I had other clients or when I was just getting started. I could use them on other people people and it was fine. But when I used them on myself, without fail, my eyes would get really itchy and watery. I don't know what ingredient was in there that I'm allergic to, but I have very sensitive eyes and they did not like those Coastal Scents palettes back in the day. So basically what I'm gonna do is take some colors from each of these palettes. I've kind of swatched them out on my hands to find the ones that are similar, and I'm gonna use similar tones in each palette. So one eye will be all Jaclyn Hill, one eye will be all Morphe 350, and from that I'm gonna determine the difference in the formula, if there is one, if one's better, if one's worse, if they're basically the same, and then maybe from that I can get an idea of how much I would actually enjoy Morphe as a line in terms of the eyeshadows and maybe other cosmetic. So my eyes are already primed. I used my Urban Decay Primer Potion in the color Fix, and then I set my entire lid using some RCMA No Color Powder, which is what I do when I create any eyeshadow look in the world. I'm gonna use the same brush on each eye. I'm just gonna wipe it off before I dip into the other palette because I like my brushes the way I like my brushes and I don't want to switch it up just for the sake of this tutorial. So for my transition shade, I'm gonna take my Smith brush. This is the 232 brush. From the Jaclyn Hill palette, I'm gonna take the shade Silk Cream, which is this color right here. So there's really not a lot of fallout when I first dip it into the brush. I have to be pretty aggressive in order to get it to start doing some fallout situations. I'm just gonna start with this eye and start doing what I normally do, which is focusing on the outer corner and kind of fading it inwards because I'm gonna do like a copper smoky eye. It's the colors in both of the palettes that there seems to be the most similar, or these kind of copper shades. So I'm gonna try this out. Okay, so my first impression is, although this is a transition color and it's meant to be a lighter shade, it's taking a few passes for me to build it up to the intensity that I want. Not the end of the world. I'm applying the color. It is blending out nicely and very smooth. So in the Morphe 350 palette, I'm gonna take this color right here. It's the one at the end closest to the more bright orange shades, and that's the one I'm gonna use for my transition shade on my other eye. And like I said, I'm gonna clean my brush off in between each shadow application. So the fallout situation, or the kickback as I'm applying it into my brush, is about the same as it is on the Jaclyn Hill palette. So far I feel like they're performing about the same. I'm going to go in with a darker shade. So from the Jaclyn Hill palette, I'm going to use the color Roxanne. It's this kind of burnt orange shade right in the dead center of the palette. So I'm just going to take that color on my Wayne Goss brush and I'm just going to start working this a little bit lower on my eye. So this one's already going on a little bit better than the first one I used, I will say. The other one I felt like took a little bit to build up the color, but this one is going on really nice. No fallout with the Jaclyn Hill one at all, which is cool. So in the Morphe 350, I'm gonna take this color right here. These are not gonna be exact dupes for each other. I'm just trying to get something similar in tone. Wiping my brush off in between each color application so that I don't mix up the formulas. So far the Jaclyn palette is definitely a lot more pigmented than the 350, but build the 350 up. The shadows just seem a little bit almost like they're not as creamy. I guess if I had to use a term to describe it, it's like they're a little bit dustier almost. And the Jaclyn ones are just like a little bit creamy. I don't really know how to explain it. Okay, so that's the first two colors done. I'm gonna take my smallest brush that I'm gonna use. If you guys want like tips and tricks on how to do your eyeshadow for any look at all, I would check out my eyeshadow blending videos. I will link them up below. I will link them above. I'm just gonna take the smallest brush that I'm going to use, and I'm going to keep the focus of the color that I'm about to go in with on the outer corner just to deepen it up. For the Jaclyn Hill palette, I'm gonna go in with this shade right here, which is called Central Park, from what I understand, right? Yeah, this is Central Park. I'm gonna go ahead and use that on my smallest brush, and I'm gonna start putting it on this outer corner just to create depth and dimension. So I feel like that color, the central part color, applied nicely. I'm just going back in with some of the Roxanne shade, just kind of adding and blending, blending and adding to get it as dark as I want it to be. So from inside the Morphe palette, doing the same thing, I'm going to grab this shade right here. It's on the bottom row, third one from the left. Just a dark brown color, they're pretty much identical to the Central Park shade. Just gonna get that all in my brush. There is a huge difference between these two formulas. It's kind of crazy. I'm not trying to say that the 350 like sucks, but it definitely takes a little bit more TLC to get it as pigmented as the Jaclyn Hill one. So in that respect, like the price difference does seem justified to me. I just think Morphe needs to obviously switch everything over to something more along the lines of this formula. I don't understand why they wouldn't. There's no reason as far as I'm concerned. I would actually imagine that most people would be willing to pay 40 bucks for a palette this big with this many shadows, like mattes and shimmers, because you're paying about 40 bucks, 45 bucks for like a Too Faced or Urban Decay palette, which typically has a lot less product, but they perform really well, so it justifies the price. I would rather not even own a palette that doesn't perform very well, regardless of it being inexpensive. Does that make sense? Just a big difference so far from what I can tell. Okay, so I'm probably gonna deepen the outer corner out once I do my lid color. For my lid color, I'm gonna take, this is the color called Sissy. That's what I call my dog, my biggest dog, Lily. I call her Sissy. I'm gonna take this color Sissy right here on a flat brush, and I'm just gonna start packing this all over my lid. I'm gonna mix Sissy with the color Hillster, because I'm gonna mix two colors in the other palette too. But for the rest of the other eye, I'm gonna mix this color in the corner with this color here in the third row to kind of get a similar like warm bronzy shade. I felt like this color, I think it's the Sissy one, is that what it's called? Wait, I'm reading things wrong. Okay, hang on a second. So I used Firework, not Sissy. This is Firework that I used. I felt like Firework was just a little bit too red. Like it really wasn't giving me a lot of contrast. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix the two colors from the Morphe palette as well. The shimmers definitely seem much more similar between the two palettes thus far compared to the mattes. I'm actually gonna go ahead and grab a spritzer. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a setting spray so I can dampen my brush and see how they perform when they're wet, because I really want to see if I can get them like built up in like a little bit more of a foiled or a metallic effect on my eye. My Smashbox primer water, I'm gonna dampen the brush a little bit, and I'm just gonna mix the same two colors from the Jaclyn Hill palette and see what happens. Okay, that's a lot better. Definitely a much more intense foil finish from doing that. Might not be able to tell on camera, but I assure you. I'm gonna wipe this off. The 350, we do not have a black shadow, and the Jaclyn Hill palette we do. If you guys have watched any of my eyeshadow tutorials before, you know that I pretty much always use, especially if I'm doing a darker smoky eye, I'm going to put a little bit of black in the outer corner, very, very small amount, and just blend it out just to kind of create a little bit more depth in that outer corner, a little bit more of a pop, a little bit more intense, a little bit more smoky. Since there is not a black shadow in the 350, I'm just gonna have to use the black from the Jaclyn Hill one to kind of do it on both eyes, but that's something to keep in mind with the 350, no black shadow. Tons of palettes don't have black shadows, not the end of the world, but for me, I always use black in my eyeshadow look, so that's something to keep in mind if you do as well. I think black shadows are a really good indication of an overall formula, because you have blacks that tend to be like black as night or a more kind of a gray tone black, so let's see. It's okay. It's not the darkest black I've ever seen in my life, but since I don't need it to appear as a black shadow in my eye, it's really not a big deal. I'm just using it to kind of deepen up slightly that outer corner. So I'm going to take the Jaclyn Hill palette and I'm just going to grab the color Beam just because I like that name. And I'm going to take a small brush just to kind of highlight the arch of my eyebrow. Ooh, that's intense. Okay, let's chill that out a little bit. It's a nice highlight shade. I don't know which one's gonna be comparable in here, so I'm just gonna take the second one from the top that looks sort of similar. It's like a shimmery, but not glittery. Just a nice highlight shade. It's pretty nice as well. A makeup wipe, and I'm gonna go ahead and take away the fallout. Fallout to me just isn't a big deal. The only time fallout would ever be something that would deter me from liking a product would be like if it had a lot of fallout and it didn't perform. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and put on the rest of my makeup and we'll come back and do my bottom lash line and see how that goes. Costume change. Off camera I went ahead and did my hair and I did the rest of my makeup and we're gonna do my bottom lash line. First, I'm gonna take my primer potion and I'm gonna put a little bit of it underneath my eye. I do this with every eyeshadow that I do because I'll get a little bit oily throughout the day and then as a result, my makeup will break up. Speaking of makeup, I'm using a new foundation today. That new NARS one I was talking about in my haul. It is so amazing. I need to do a dedicated video on it. What I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna go back into the Jaclyn Hill palette for my Jaclyn Hill eye, and I'm gonna take the color Roxanne here in the center, and I'm really gonna run this from inner corner to outer corner because I just want it to be super smoky and lashy and dark. So I'm going back in with this shade right here, which is what I used on my 350 eye. I'm just gonna run that from inner corner to outer corner as well. The Jaclyn Hill eye and this is the regular Morphe eye. It's just so much easier to build color up and the pigmentation's just really there in a way that it isn't in the 350. Like I said, it's like a standalone product. The 350 is not bad. You're getting your money's worth. You know, I think if you're getting a palette that's this big for the price that this is, you're gonna get what you pay for. Like I say, I know that not everyone has a bajillion dollars to spend on makeup, but from what I can tell right now, if you're gonna buy a Morphe palette, I would just save up the extra 15 bucks and go for this one. It's just where I'm at so far with it. Take an eyeliner. This is my Makeup Forever eyeliner in the color M60, just a matte chocolate brown eyeliner. And on the Jaclyn Hill eye, I'm gonna start smudging this in my waterline and dragging it down a little bit. And then immediately after I do that, no time to waste, I'm gonna go ahead and take my dark brown shadow to start smudging it out. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Shade right here. So I'm going to turn the camera off and do my lashes and lips really quick, and then I will be right back. Okay guys, so this is the finished look. I have the Jaclyn Hill palette on this eye and the Morphe 350 palette on this eye. Looking at it right here on camera, the colors are pretty similar. They look like they're basically performed the same, but I can tell you through the process of applying them, they definitely do not perform the same. This is a much, much better formula than this is. If you've been on the fence about getting this palette, I would say go ahead and get it. It is a really nice palette. It's pretty much got every type of eyeshadow you could need to create a neutral look. There's some pops of color. It's a good, solid product. I think it's priced really well for what it is to boot. This, on the other hand, it's not that I don't think it's good. It's just that if I had to judge all of Morphe's products with the exception of this based solely on this palette, I would say that I'm gonna stick to what my initial impression of Morphe was. I think people who don't have a lot of makeup, people who are just getting into makeup or experimenting with it, don't have a lot of money to spend on makeup, I still do believe Morphe is a good line for that particular need. But if you've got a lot of experience with it and you have some really good shadows, I think you could probably afford to pass on this. I understand it's relatively inexpensive, and for the price point, it definitely kind of matches up to what I would expect in terms of quality. It's not the worst thing ever, but I don't know if I'm going to use it anymore, especially if I have this one instead. If Morphe has started moving their products and the formula of their products more towards the formula in the Jaclyn Hill palette, then I will probably pick more things up from them in the future, especially because a lot of you guys request me to do tutorials using Morphe eyeshadows. Now, as far as the brushes are concerned, I went to Ulta and I kind of played with some of the brushes while I was there, and I just don't think I'm going to change my mind on that. To summarize, would I say that I was right in my anti-haul about Morphe? Yes and no. Yes, because one of my big initial problems, and the biggest problem I kind of talked about in my Morphe rant that I had a lot more to do with the way that I felt about the marketing behind the business. And like, I get it, it's a business's objective to make money. You can't make money if people don't know about it. And if you have a really good marketing plan that is giving you millions of dollars, like, why would you change it? I get it. I just personally am not a fan of that type of marketing. Now, as far as the product themselves are concerned, I would say the Jaclyn Hill palette was a lot better than I was expecting it to be, but the 350 palette is still kind of on par with what I was originally expecting. Still, it's not a bad product. Would I scoop up every single Morphe palette that comes out from here on out just cause it's only 23 bucks? Absolutely not. If the formula starts to become consistently in line with something like this, even if all the palettes went up to $38, I can tell you right now I would probably buy them very, very often. So that's where I stand on Morphe now, guys. I'm really happy that I tried something new. If you guys want to see more tutorials using the Jaclyn Hill palette, please let me know. I'd be happy to create more looks. Make sure you check the notes in the down bar for information about the giveaway, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!